Hi folks, welcome to this video on a problem that deals with calculating the correct balance in the allowance for doubtful accounts. Now in our problem, which I've just got on the screen here, you can see that we're dealing with a company that uses the aging method because they've got their receivables classified by when they're due and the debit balance or the net debit balance in the account and the percentage that they're going to apply for accounts they believe are uncollectible within each aging classification. Now, your goal, if you look at the instructions down here, is to make any necessary correcting entries. So if we're going to look at correcting entries, let's go through the problem to see what is not done properly. Well, the first thing we notice if we look at the schedule here is that they have $4,200 included in this balance of $23,644, which they say is definitely uncollectible, and yet they've made no write-off entry. We can see here in the allowance for doubtful accounts, the write-off entry would debit the allowance and credit the AR. We see none of that for $4,200, so we know they didn't make it and they should. So that's one item we are going to correct. You'll also notice here in item number 3 that there were 2 entries made in the bad debt expense account during the year. The second entry is one that was incorrectly done. Why do I say that? Well, there was a bankruptcy, and what they did for the bankruptcy is they credited for $2,740 the bad debt expense and debited the allowance. We know that when we write off an account that's not likely of collection, that we do debit the allowance, but we credit the account receivable, not the bad debt expense, as they credited here. So we're going to have to correct that. If we look at number 5, they told us that they had a credit balance in one of their accounts receivable for their customers in the 61 to 90 day category because the customer had paid them in advance on a sales contract. Well, that advance payment doesn't represent a credit to the receivable. What we should have done is credit an unearned revenue, right? Because it represents a liability to us. They paid us in advance for something that we haven't yet done. So we're also going to have to remove that credit balance in the AR. So those are 3 corrections that we need to make. So with those in mind, let's have a look at what our solution would look like for the correcting entries and then find out what the proper balance is in the allowance and adjust it to that balance.